Welcome to America Current Affairs. Today we are talking about a monster storm that literally brought an entire nation to its knees. Can you imagine waking up one morning to find your country is just frozen? Transportation is shut down, the power is out? Well, that was the reality for millions of people in the UK when Storm Goretti came roaring through. And right from the get-go, you could just feel the urgency. This wasn't just another winter flurry. Officials on the ground, like the council in Stoke-on-Trent, they put it bluntly. This was the worst snowfall they had seen in a decade. That one sentence, right there, was a chilling preview of the absolute chaos that was about to unfold. So, what's the first thing to go in a storm this bad? The power, of course. Across the UK, more than 57,000 families were suddenly thrown into the cold and the dark as the storm just ripped through the power grid. And believe me, that number was only going to get bigger. So the big question is, how did this one storm manage to bring a whole country to a grinding halt? Let's take a look at how Britain found itself trapped under this massive blanket of snow and ice. Think about it. On Friday, January 9th, the entire country just stopped. Hundreds of schools had to close their doors. Major airports like Birmingham and East Midlands, they had to shut down their runways completely. In some parts of the country, all train services were suspended. Main roads were totally blocked by huge fallen trees, and tiny rural communities were completely cut off from the rest of the world. It was a total nationwide shutdown. So, did this monster storm just pop up out of thin air? Not exactly. The warnings were definitely there. And you know what? They got more and more serious with every passing hour. Let's look at the forecast that led up to all this chaos. You can literally see how things escalated here. Days ahead of time, forecasters were already calling this a major snow event. Then the official warnings started rolling in. First, an amber warning for heavy snow. Now, you can think of amber as a heads up, a be prepared. But then, it was upgraded to something much, much more serious. A rare red warning for wind. A red warning means take action now because there's a real threat to life. They were predicting winds over 100 miles per hour. And then on January 9th, it all came true. You see, this wasn't just a snowstorm, and it wasn't just a windstorm. Oh no, Goretti was a triple threat. It attacked with ferocious wind, blinding snow, and torrential rain, all at the same time. First up was the wind. And listen, we are not talking about your average windy day. We are talking about hurricane force gusts that had the raw power to literally tear buildings and infrastructure apart. The winds peaked at a staggering 99 miles per hour. To give you some perspective, that's highway speed, but it's in the air and it's hitting everything in its path. Just incredible. And the impact was absolutely devastating. That record-breaking gust was recorded in the Isles of Scilly. These winds weren't just rattling some windows. They were strong enough to rip the roofs clean off of houses and tear massive sea defenses right out of the ground. And while those winds were howling, the second part of Goretti's attack started, a huge, suffocating blanket of snow. This was way more than just a little dusting. We're talking about 30 centimeters. That's a full foot of heavy, wet snow. It was deep enough to bury cars and bring the entire country to a dead stop. In some of the higher spots, people were saying it was even deeper, a true blizzard. And as if the wind and the snow weren't destructive enough, Goretti's third weapon arrived. Just torrential, downpouring rain. And again, this wasn't some light drizzle, it was a deluge. Down in Cornwall, over 61 millimeters of rain fell in just one day. And that created a whole new kind of danger. Because you've got all that rain coming down, right? And what's gonna happen to that foot of snow on the ground? It's gonna start melting. And that combination, rain and melting snow, is a perfect recipe for widespread flooding. The UK's Flood Forecasting Center was on high alert. So eventually, the storm passed and the skies started to clear up. But was the crisis really over? Well, the road to recovery was going to be a long, long one. Not even close. For tens of thousands of people all across the country, the real emergency, the real struggle, was actually just beginning. The storm left behind an unbelievable trail of destruction. Tens of thousands of homes were still without power for days. And then came this terrible twist. A power cut hit a water treatment plant, which meant thousands of people suddenly had no clean drinking water. All of this was happening while a massive cleanup operation was just trying to get started. The situation down in Cornwall was just especially dire. On Saturday, the day after the storm, you had over 15,000 homes still without electricity. And at the exact same time, another 15,000 homes had their water supply completely cut off. It was a true double crisis, hitting families from all sides. And you've got to remember, behind all these big numbers are real people facing some really terrifying situations. For residents like Becky Cross, this was way more than just an inconvenience. She's a kidney transplant recipient, so clean water is essential for her health. She talked about having to ration bottled water just to take her medicine and feeling completely stranded, just in limbo, as she put it. So as the UK starts to dig out and clean up, what happens next? Let's take a look at the bigger picture here. Okay, so even though the worst of the wind and snow was over, the danger wasn't gone, not by a long shot. Weather warnings for ice were still active, and a new threat was starting to emerge. As the temperatures started to rise, all that melting snow, combined with even more rain in the forecast, dramatically increased the risk of major flooding. And this whole thing really leaves us with one final critical question. Storm Goretti might be over, but as this kind of extreme weather gets more and more common all around the world, is the UK actually prepared for the next one? What do you think? It's a tough question, and it's one that communities and governments all over the globe are having to ask themselves more and more often. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Storm Goretti. If you want to understand the big stories that are shaping our world with clear, nonsense analysis, make sure you subscribe to America Current Affairs. We'll see you next time.